What can we do to try to reduce the problems associated with climate change? Well, people are getting more interested in this, and in fact, we saw in September the largest march, hundreds of thousands of people converging in New York City for the purpose of saying, I want climate action. This was a truly inspirational event where world leaders, from Al Gore to Ban Ki-moon to Jane Goodall to the mayor of New York City, all coming together and saying, we demand climate action. We need it. So, what is climate action? Of course, we need climate action from our government. We need it from Washington. Yet, take it from me, as somebody who's lived in Washington for the last 35 years, any of you think that we're going to see realistic climate change legislation coming out of Washington anytime soon? No. Shamefully, no. Biggest problem facing our species right now on our planet, and we're not going to see anything coming out of Washington on it. So, what can we do? Well, what are people in California being asked to do? Are they being asked to alter the course of history in the way that Gandhi said so? When he said the small body of determined spirits fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission can indeed alter the course of history, because we all know in this room that that's what we need, to alter the course of history. But is that what we're being asked to do? To take historic steps? What are the recommendations that we see people getting? Changing our light bulbs? Taking shorter or colder showers? Is that what's going to fix this problem? Indeed, don't get me wrong. I think that taking shorter or colder showers is good. I think that changing our light bulbs is good. But let's say that we were to have an obese patient who goes to the doctor, and the doctor tells him, you weigh 300 pounds, your cholesterol is over 300, your blood pressure is through the roof, you have diabetes. Let me offer you a prescription. You should try walking for 15 minutes a day. Now go. Do you think that would be medical malpractice? Of course. Now don't get me wrong, walking 15 minutes a day is an important thing to do. I think it's a good thing to do, and I hope that any person who finds himself in that lamentable position indeed does it. But we all know that these types of solutions, like changing our light bulbs or taking shorter showers, are similar to that type of a prescription when you have a problem as dire as this patient has. This is really the root of the problem. Thoreau said that for every 1,000 who are hacking at the branches of evil, there's one hacking at the root. And our diets, far more than our light bulbs and far more than our showers, are really at the root of this problem that we're facing when it comes to so many planetary, climate, and other sustainability issues. So let's just say hypothetically that you want to save 1,000 gallons of water. And you have two options. You want to use 1,000 fewer gallons of water. You can either, A, buy one less chicken. 1,000 gallons is about the amount of water it takes to bring one chicken from shell to shelf, including all the water used to grow the grain for that chicken. 1,000 gallons for one chicken. Or, let's say you want to do it in the showering way, by taking fewer showers. Instead of skipping one chicken, you could not take a shower for 6 months. Not that I recommend doing that, but that's what we're talking about. That's how severe the disparity is between these types of climate mitigation strategies. Avoiding animal products is going to be far more effective, far more efficient than taking shorter showers or changing our light bulbs. In fact, the United Nations is so adamant on this point that it says, when it talks about World Water Day, the annual holiday dedicated to celebrating water conservation, the number one thing that you can do, minimal meat, the United Nations is saying, replace meat with another source of protein is the number one thing that we can each do to help conserve water. In fact, academics looking at this said, managing the demand for animal products by promoting a dietary shift away from a meat-rich diet will be an inevitable component in the environmental policy of governments. this is not just a personal responsibility issue. This is an issue that requires some amount of government involvement to ensure that we have policies that help move us toward healthier and more sustainable diets, rather than the policies that we have in place now, which push us toward unhealthy and unsustainable meat-centric diets. Some people will rebut. They'll say, well, actually local is what we need to be focused on, not so much whether it's plant or animal, but whether it's local. Anybody think that that is possibly true? In fact, the number of miles that food travels is such an insignificant part of the total carbon footprint of that food product that there are a multitude of ways, including things like what method of cooking we use, that have far more environmental impact than the number of miles the product traveled. But don't take my word for it. Take researchers from Carnegie Mellon, who did the study looking at how much carbon footprint you could save by going local or by just going vegan for 1 day a week. Shifting less than 1 day per week's worth of calories to a vegetable-based diet achieves more greenhouse gas reduction than buying all locally sourced food. In other words, if you were to eat a diet of 100% local food, you would have fewer carbon savings than you would if you just went vegan 1 day a week. Just 1 day a week. That's how dramatic this disparity is. And that's why humanitarian relief organizations like Oxfam are arguing for sharp reductions in our consumption of animal products, noting that it takes massive amounts of land, water, fertilizer, oil, and other resources to produce meat, significantly more than it requires to grow other nutritious and delicious kinds of food. So, what are we to do? Well, let's look at what Bill Gates is arguing that we should be doing. Bill Gates on his Facebook page says by 2030 the world will need millions of tons more meat than it does today because we're going to have a lot more people on the planet. But meeting that demand with animal products isn't sustainable, and he is putting his own money into companies that are investing in plant-based solutions to these problems. Companies like Beyond Meat and Hampton Creek, which are producing foods made out of plants that mimic animal products like chicken or like eggs, so that we can have those same products but without all of the environmentally catastrophic problems that are associated with current forms of animal production today. If you go to his website on the future of food, you can see how he says food scientists are reinventing meat and how everyone can benefit. And meat need not be considered just from animals. So, we know in terms of water that avoiding animal products is a great way to conserve it. Important for California and for all of us, to be frank. But in terms of climate change, not just water scarcity, but climate change itself, the root of much of this drought problem, what does the UN have to say on this? Asking which causes more greenhouse gases, cattle or driving cars, and unsurprisingly, the animal agriculture sector causes more greenhouse gas emissions than the entire transportation sector combined. More greenhouse gas emissions than all cars, trains, planes, boats, and so on, the global animal agriculture sector. That's how serious of a problem animal ag is with regard to the environment. This is why scientists are warning us we need to eat less meat to save the planet, saying that Westerners need to cut half the meat out of our diets in order to prevent global warming. And that is one reason why the Humane Society of the United States, the largest animal protection organization both in the country and in the world, is so adamantly arguing in favor of reducing our consumption of animal products. This is an important animal welfare issue. It's important to wildlife, it's important to domesticated animals, and it's important to the human animal as well. Our addiction to a meat-centric diet is killing the planet, it's killing animals, and it's killing us. The Humane Society recognizes that all animals, including farm animals, deserve to be protected from cruelty. But they don't just deserve protection from cruelty. These animals are not different from the animals who we welcome into our homes and into our families. These animals, the chickens and the pigs and the turkeys who we raise on farms for food, have personalities. They have likes. They have dislikes. They may come in different shapes and different sizes from our dogs or our cats. but they share that same spark of life, that same form of consciousness, that same desire to avoid suffering. And we go to such great lengths to ensure that our dogs and cats have good, happy, decent lives. And yet, these same animals, chickens and pigs and turkeys, what do we give them? On factory farms, we give them misery. The myth is that these animals are living like this. Yet, that's not the way most farm animals are living. In fact, that's the way nearly none of them are living. Most of them are living like this, on factory farms. You can see here that little tiny sliver of the pie, that's the percentage of farm animals who are raised out on pasture for their whole lives. Most of them are raised like this, in industrial factory farms where they are treated more like units of production, like commodities on an assembly line in a factory, than they are the living, breathing individuals who they are. This is a photo I took at an egg factory in Maryland, and you can see this is an egg-laying production facility. You can see how cramped these birds are. They're unable even to spread their wings. In the egg industry today, it's typical, in fact, 9 out of 10 egg cartons sold in our country come from birds who are crammed into cages so small they were unable even to spread their wings. Each bird has less space than a sheet of paper on which to live for more than a year before she's slaughtered. That's the norm in this industry. In the chicken meat industry, it's the norm to take birds and genetically manipulate them so they grow so fat, so fast, that many of them buckle underneath their own weight after just a few pitiful steps, unable to even walk properly because they are so enormous. We take pigs in the pork industry and lock them in iron maidens known as gestation crates where they're unable even to turn around, not just for days or weeks, but for literally months on end. The point of this is not to enumerate a litany of abuses in the meat, egg, and dairy industries. The point of it, though, is to demonstrate that animal abuse is the norm, not the exception when it comes to the animal agribusiness industry today. This isn't a matter of a few bad apples or a few rotten eggs. It is a matter of standard industry practices that are so heinous, that are so extreme, that they are simply rotten. Yet to hear the agribusiness industry themselves tell it, you see, from one of their press releases, they say, quote, "The technologies used by today's farmers provide the most comfortable living conditions that food animals have ever had." Ever had. Are you telling me that in 10,000 years of animal agriculture, that this is the best that we can do? That that is the most comfortable living conditions that farm animals have ever had? That's shameful. And so I started wondering to myself, I wonder what it would look like for farm animals to actually be in the most comfortable conditions they've ever had. And I started Googling around, and this is what I found. I think that might be the actual most comfortable conditions they've ever had. But alas, that is not the way most farm animals are treated. Yet this is what the meat industry wants. You may be thinking, is this a glitch in the program? No. They want people in the dark. They want people not knowing what is going on. And the job of animal and environmental advocates is to shine a bright light on this otherwise dark and hidden world of animal cruelty and environmental degradation that the animal agribusiness industry is so prolifically causing. That's what our task is, to help our friends and our family and our coworkers and members of our community understand that each one of us is empowered to make the world a better place every single time we sit down to eat. But if the meat industry had its way, what do you think they would do? You think they would try to prevent the abuses from taking place and they would try to clean up their environmental act? No. Here's the cover of the New York Times. Videos show cruelty on the farm and taping becomes the crime. The meat industry's response to these criticisms about animal cruelty and environmental degradation is not to clean up its act. It's to prevent Americans from finding out about these problems in the first place by passing Ag Gag bills to criminalize not the abuse, not the pollution, but to criminalize the documentation of the abuse or the documentation of the pollution. In fact, in North Carolina, there's a bill sitting on Governor Pat McCrory's desk right now, as we speak, that if he signs it and he has 3 days left to decide what to do, would make their state an Ag Gag state. The number 2 pig production state in the country, number 2 turkey production state in the country, would have an Ag Gag law making it a crime not to abuse animals, but to videotape somebody of using them. It would give employers the ability to sue any employee who videotaped illegal or unethical activities while they were on the job. But fortunately, the Humane Society of the United States is fighting back, killing Ag Gag bill after Ag Gag bill. We are even rolling out some of our most articulate, most eloquent, most handsome spokespeople onto the airwaves so that we can debate these issues of Ag Gag, and we are winning time and time again. We're not only killing Ag Gag bills, we're passing laws in states to crack down on animal cruelty. Passing laws to ban the types of inhumane forms of confinement that we were just looking at painfully a few minutes ago. Gestation crates, battery cages, veal crates. 10 states now have laws that restrict some or all of those types of confinement. But when I say that we're winning by killing Ag Gag bills and by passing laws to crack down on animal cruelty on factory farms, that's all important. It's imperative that for the billions of animals who are going to be raised and killed for food, that they suffer less. But let us not forget that we not only want to reduce the level of suffering these animals are enduring, but if we're really serious about wanting to combat factory farming and climate change, we have to also not just reduce their suffering, but also reduce the number of animals being raised and killed for food in the first place. So, let's look at the Economist chart, the kings of the carnivores. You look at a rating of all the countries who are big carnivores, and you see us here, the United States, nearly atop the world when it comes to per capita consumption of meat. However, you can see here, this is a 2007 chart. Well, what's happened since then? You can look at meat consumption in the U.S., and it's gone up and up and up and up till 2007. In fact, if you were to go back to World War II, what you would see is a huge increase in per capita meat demand from essentially World War II to 2007. Anybody have a guess as what happened after 2007? Fell off of a cliff. Meat consumption has continued to decline precipitously since 2007 every single year in our country and in much of Europe as well. People are moving from an inhumane diet to a diet that's a little bit more humane. So why are we doing this? Well, the environment is part of it. You know, people, yes, they want to be healthy. Yes, they want to prevent cruelty to animals. They want to try to adopt a live and let live mentality. At the same time, they're also now finally hearing from environmental groups that it's important, for the sake of our planet, our only home, that we reduce our meat consumption. For example, NRDC says swapping out meat for any number of lower impact forms of protein just one day a week is one of the most impactful things concerned individuals can do to reduce their environmental food prints. If only we could think of one day that people could swap out meat and have for a meatless day, just one day a week. If only we could all get together and agree on one day. Anybody have any suggestions of what that day might be? Meatless Monday. Exactly. So, Meatless Monday is an international campaign to help people start the week out right. Help them get a new start to the week, just like a New Year's resolution, essentially. But a new week resolution, and help them start that week out by going meatless. It's not just alliterative. Studies also show that any new health-forming habit that you want, starting on a Monday makes you more likely to stick with it. Now, pop quiz for you. Anybody know who invented this once-a-week fast from meat, the Meatless Monday? Anybody know? Not one person. Anybody want to take a guess? Farm, good guess, but not right.
You.
I started it! Not true. I wish. All right. Here is the fact of the night for you. This is the fact you're going to go and razzle and dazzle all your friends with. Meatless Monday, this concept of going meat-free one day a week, was actually started by the U.S. government. So, here's the real fact.
Wow.
You ready? So first look at this. This is 1947 New York Times. Here you see Reds of communists of 9 nations revived to fight imperialist hegemony, 2 Stalinists attend secret meetings. But then look what this story is. Truman calls on nation to forgo meat Tuesdays, poultry, eggs Thursdays. Front page, New York Times. Why would he do that? Well, let's go back to World War I. Eating meat is very resource intensive, as we heard earlier in the presentation. And so the government knew this back during World War I, and so to conserve resources for the war effort, they urged Americans to go for Meatless Mondays so they could conserve resources for the troops. Meatless Monday went fallow, but then came back again after World War II in the European rebuilding effort to rebuild Europe after World War II. And Truman called on Americans, eat less meat so we can have more resources for the European rebuilding effort. Then, in 2003, we had another war that Meatless Mondays was invented to combat. No, not the Iraq War. This time, a war on obesity, a war on climate change, a war on environmental degradation, and on animal cruelty. And Meatless Monday came about through Johns Hopkins School of Public Health as a way to try to promote a better way of living. And it has taken off. Even Nestle, the major food manufacturer on lean cuisine products, now says, trying Meatless Monday, this is on the front of lean cuisine packaging. Trying Meatless Monday, this meatless must-have combines ingredients like so-and-so. It's a great thing. Say, good to remember, meatless is still full of goodness. Health experts, and I don't know why they felt the need to capitalize the E for experts, but Nestle, you would think, could hire people who understand grammar a bit better. But health experts say you can still meet, no pun intended, I'm pretty sure the pun was intended, your daily nutrient mix even without meat in the mix. Even Walmart is now promoting Meatless Mondays, saying Meatless Monday recipes, go vegetarian for a day and prepare one of these tasty no-meat dishes. Talk about an issue that was once so firmly out in the mainstream and now is so firmly in the center. I mean, when I became a vegan 21 years ago, people didn't know what the word meant. If anything, they thought that you were from Vegas. Now, people hear it and they see that Walmart and Nestle are talking about this. It's truly incredible. But some people are going beyond Meatless Monday. They're saying a 1/7 reduction. They want to do more. So Center for Biological Diversity is saying, take extinction off your plate.com. It is very cute. I agree. I wish I knew the species of this little rodent, but he's very cute. Saying, eat less meat, save more wildlife. Cutting just 1/3 of the meat from your diet can significantly reduce your environmental footprint. So first, NRDC is talking about 1 day a week. Center for Biological Diversity is talking about cutting 1/3 of the meat out of your diet. These environmental groups are now getting on board and saying that we need to get serious about climate change. That means we need to get serious about reducing our meat consumption. Some people are following Mark Bittman's vegan before 6 p.m. plan, where everything you eat before 6 p.m. is vegan, and then you eat whatever you want afterwards. Or some people are going further, like, for example, the CEO of the Nature Conservancy, who himself is a vegan, who said if more people had a vegan or vegetarian diet, especially in the developed world, the environmental impact would be significant. So when you see NRDC, Center for Biological Diversity, Nature Conservancy talking about these issues, you're seeing a real shift in the consciousness of the environmental movement in the United States, recognizing this problem. Well, if you're going to go from Mark Bittman's vegan before 6 p.m., maybe the next thing to do is do like Bill Clinton, where you're vegan before 6 p.m. and after 6 p.m., going whole hog, or maybe no hog if you prefer. Going vegan, you can see here is AARP magazine. Bill Clinton explains why he became a vegan. And it's not just Bill Clinton. Even people like Al Gore. Now, how many of you saw An Inconvenient Truth? All right? And how many of you were hoping when you were watching, you're like, okay, like we're going to get to it. We're going to get to the animal ag part. He even goes to his family cattle ranch. And you're like, this is it. We're going to hear about it. And then what? Nothing. What the heck? Nothing. Well, you know what Al is doing now? Over a year ago, he changed his diet to a vegan diet. He felt better, so it was continued with it. And he's likely to continue with it for the rest of his life. The entire Clinton-Gore ticket. What a world that would be today. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Here we are in liberal Portland. Maybe you guys all voted for this ticket back in 96, 92 and 96. But maybe you didn't. But lest you start thinking that this is a matter only for the left, think again. Because in fact, many prominent conservatives are also on the same bandwagon. Matthew Scully, who was a speechwriter for George W. Bush and for Sarah Palin, wrote an article, Pro-Life, Pro-Animal, The Conscience of a Pro-Life Vegan Conservative, in which he said that factory farms produce almost every animal product we see sold or advertised are places of immense and avoidable suffering. Even mega pastor Rick Warren is talking about this, saying that his faith-based diet vegetarian diet helped his congregation lose $250,000 pounds following his biblically based Daniel plan. Daniel. It's amazing. You're seeing parts of our society from all political sides, from the whole spectrum, recognizing the need to get together to help us embrace a saner, more environmentally sustainable, and more humane diet.